Girl Bookworms podcast, a space for those of us who read books and wear boots. I'm your host, Brandy Bradley. So what's new at Books and Boots? What's happening? What's happening on the website? What's happening in this indie writer's world? Well, during the month of April, I attended 2 different writers' conferences. I went to Red Clay Writers and I went to Atlanta Self-Publishing Conference. So I'm not confident at writers' conferences. I always feel like that first day of high school when you've been transferred to a new school. There are like these cool kids and there are the new kids. And at one conference, the cool kids are these artful, confident scribes who win major awards. And at the other, the cool kids are the sci-fi and fantasy nerds who held court at the end of the day in the cafe area, swapping self-publishing horror stories. Typical me. I found a quiet place where I could absorb the material without feeling overwhelmed. I wrote a whole post about this on brandybradley.com/blog this week, so be sure to check that out. In other news, I am rounding out my semester as an instructor, which means I can start amping up the writing business. I got fantastic ideas at the Writers' Conference, and I'm looking forward to launching my first online course in June, titled This is What a Writer Looks Like, Developing the Mindset to Write Your First Novel or Short Story Collection. You can join the waitlist at brandybradley.com/writing workshops. So what's the story? This week, I'm going to read to you a post that I call A Story for the Lonely. At Christmas last year, we went to Mass. We fiddle-farted around, not heeding Hub's warning that it would be impossibly crowded because this is when everybody else goes to church. I had hoped the service would be a children's program because there's nothing quite like hearing a child scream sing Joy to the World for the cheap seats. We were not late. We were technically on time, which is not early enough for Catholics at Christmas. We couldn't sit in the sanctuary. We couldn't even sit in the annex. We found a space to stand along the back wall. There were also no children singing. I was disappointed. I forget the message of the homily. Sometimes I space out. Sometimes I focus on whether Bear is paying attention. It's possible I was thinking about my feet in heels aching from standing for more than an hour. In the section where we offered prayers, the priest included the lonely in those we prayed for. I was used to the poor, the sick, the physically injured, but never heard them mention prayers for the lonely. I was struck by this and started to cry. Crying in church is something Baptists do regularly, but I converted to Catholicism more than 10 years ago. And every once in a while, the old Baptist in me comes out and I'm left blubbering, while the stoic cradle Catholics are left to wonder, what's her deal? Prayers for the lonely. I felt that. A few years ago, I was thinking about why I write. I followed a prompt which asked me to develop a mission statement for my writing career, and I considered the feedback I had received from others about my work. One friend told me that reading one of my essays felt like coming into a warm space after being out in the cold. Others have told me I write with a sense of empathy for my characters. I don't like to write villains because everyone has a reason or rationalization for their actions. And I came to the realization I write so my reader doesn't feel lonely. Because that's why I sought out stories when I was young. I immersed myself in stories as an escape from my own loneliness. I'm going to apologize here because I am legitimately worried that I have shown too much. I've revealed too much about myself. It's possible you are uncomfortable knowing this about me. I've been encouraged to allow myself to be vulnerable and to share more, but that's hard. but I know it helps. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine posted a selfie on Instagram, and the caption explained her history with body dysmorphia. I have always thought she was fit because she was disciplined and possessed good genes. I was unaware of her struggle. Knowing that made me feel closer to her, but also made me feel self-involved because I always assume everybody else's life is perfect while mine is a total mess. As a young girl, I was flummoxed by this idea of how to make friends and how to keep friends. What did it mean to be a friend? How can you tell who your real friends are? Who were my friends? I often found myself running with kids who teased or tore each other down. It was a time when this is how kids communicated, through competition and degradation. Few of them read books. None of them loved story. They were easily bored. They performed, they danced, cheerleading, they skated. TV was telling me that my oldest friends should be my best friends, but that wasn't the case. TV was also telling me that my siblings would actually be my best friends, and that definitely wasn't the case. It wasn't until I was in high school did I have a conversation with another person and felt, yes, you hear me. You really hear me. It was like suddenly being able to speak a secret language, and we fell into a best friendship that lasted years. I'm going to apologize again. This is coming across as whiny. Can't I talk about anything without dredging up my childhood? Well, I was sad. Who wasn't? But it was in one of my sessions where my therapist asked, "Were you bullied as a child?" And my response was, yeah. And like a wave hitting me in the face, I fell into a hysterical crying fit that worried me. Worried that I might have lost my damn mind. I didn't know where it was coming from, but it was like speaking it aloud had unleashed something. I was in such a state that she wouldn't let me leave right away. And when I called Hubs, he told me he would come get me so I wouldn't have to drive home. I had spoken the truth. I had been bullied as a child. I didn't feel safe in my home. I'm easily triggered by chaos, slamming doors, and neglectful authority figures. But I always remind myself that my childhood wasn't especially bad, but it wasn't especially great either. I don't recall the first time I sat down and said, I am going to write. I remember drawing and hand lettering things. I kept little diaries with fragile locks on the front that my brother and friends broke so they could read my childlike scrawl proclaiming that I had a crush on someone. I opened notebooks and wrote things down until I was tired. Some of the notebooks were pretty, archival paper, leather bound. Others were basic composition books, wide-ruled and doodled upon. I have a box of these notebooks dating back to my childhood in storage. On my studio bookshelf, I have a row of Moleskine notebooks organized by date. When I write in those notebooks, I am in a world of my own design. Anything is possible. Once while discussing realistic writing with a colleague, they mentioned that some use storytelling as an opportunity to rewrite their own history, making themselves the hero, instead of writing it in a realistic way, where there are no heroes. To which I responded, what's the point of writing fiction if you can't create a world of your own liking? The early stories of my youthful notebooks were often being rescued from the farm, working with teams of people to defeat evil or finding love. All stories of no longer being isolated or alone. It didn't occur to me that I was no longer lonely until I was pregnant with W. I was driving to my job, a coffee shop where I was a barista, fully pregnant, and I was talking to my belly. I soon realized what I was doing and thought about how I was going to have a kid, and they would soon be with me all the time. I would love them, and they would love me back. And that felt really nice. I guess the idea of why I was writing circled around me when I first conceptualized my novel, Mothers of the Missing Mermaid. When I launched the story, I was focused on Bee, the young woman who learned she was kidnapped when she was a toddler. When I first developed the idea, I was thinking about developing a character that was a young woman who was confident and fully loved, but she was raised without many privileges. I wanted her to be rich in love and not money. And eventually I realized that only someone who had been incredibly lonely would be ready to love someone that fully. Enter Kate, who needed that kind of love and never got it. My hope as a writer is that those who find me will feel less lonely while they are reading what I write. That's important to me. I have writing goals. I want to do public readings, teach seminars, sign copies, appear on a podcast or two that's not this one, and give interviews. And to be honest, I've already done all of those things already. Now all my goals are designed to get more eyes on the page. I hope to see my books in the library, passed around among friends, or listed under the Goodreads category of, I don't know why, but I'm going to read it again for some reason. I am a realist about what I excel at as a writer. I am not artful. I am not a poet, and I kind of suck at grammar. But I love to tell a story to make someone feel happy, even if it's only for a short while. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable today. If you are curious about the story of Bee and Kate, please head over to brandybradley.com and check out the shop. I have Mothers of the Missing Mermaid both in digital and in print copies available for you to order. And if you just want a little taste, something short, a little piece, definitely check out my shorter pieces in the company of Liars and Local Monsters. Or if you're more comfortable with places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, or other book retailers, just go to your favorite book purchasing platform and search for Mothers of the Missing Mermaid by Brandy Bradley. Again, thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this, remember there's new content on brandybradley.com each week. Also, don't forget, each month I'm delivering new exclusive content to my newsletter subscribers. Newsletter subscribers are the first to know when I'm having promotions, when I'm doing live events, when I'm attending things, and then also when new content is available. So make sure that you sign up for that at brandybradley.com/newsletter. Read books, wear boots, XOXOB.